Hello, everyone. My name is Courtney Waring, and I'm Director of Education at the Eric Carle Museum of Picture Book Art. And I'm so pleased to welcome LeUyen Pham to Vic Carle's We Heart Books and Art program. Wynn has illustrated 120 books. Is that right, LeUyen?
Something like that, yeah.
For children?
I think I've lost track. Yeah, I've lost track. I'll give you a final number next time I see you.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot, yeah.
2020's Caldecott Honor Book Bear Came Along by Richard T. Morris, and the best-selling Princess in Black series by Shannon and Dean Hale. She's also the co-creator, along with Shannon Hale, of the best-selling graphic memoirs Real Friends and Best Friends. This month, she released her newest title, which she both wrote and illustrated, called Outside Inside. Thanks for joining us, Wynn.
Thank you guys for having me. I love the Carle, so anytime you want me.
We miss you, but as our viewers can see, where I'm in the East Coast, Wynn is in the beautiful West Coast, enjoying just a lovely summer day, sunny day.
Yes, it's one of those like golden winter sunny days, which we get a lot of in LA, but it just means we have no idea what concept of time is. Like, Christmas? What's Christmas? Did that just pass? I don't know.
Don't worry. No. Now let's talk about your new book. You said that you didn't feel like you wrote this book as much as you recorded and documented it. Can you tell our readers about this just stunning new book of yours, Outside Inside?
Yeah, so Outside Inside was I keep saying that it's not a book that I wrote because I don't feel like it's like this is my story. This isn't something that came from inside me. This is something that came from everywhere, from the moment I would step outside, the moment I would walk through the streets. The story just kept bouncing into my face. It got into my children's lives. Like it's the story of all of us during this particular time, during this very crazy, unprecedented, I can't even say unprecedented, but within our lifetime, unprecedented. And what was crazy was that while it was happening, it's one of those moments where, when you write a journal, if you write a journal at the time that you're 12, you remember exactly what it feels like when you open up that journal and you read that journal. But if you write it when you're 40, trying to remember when you were 12, it's not quite the same. And I felt like this was something I had to write about while it was happening, because everything was the moment was completely present. Everything was here. It was now. All of the emotions were raw and they were real. And I felt like there was so much that everyone was experiencing, and we're so quick to forget in this particular society. The news comes on and 2 seconds later something else has happened, and you rush through feelings without getting a chance to stop and analyze them. And that's during when all this started to happen, when this lockdown started to happen. For us it started at about mid-March.
Same for us too.
Yeah, I think almost everyone happened around mid-March, which is how the book starts, that in between this change of season, something strange happens. And right when that started to happen and everything came to a crashing halt, I felt like I wasn't processing things quite right. I mean, everybody was in shell shock, and we were all trying to figure out, okay, well, how is this going to work? Or who's going to work from home? Who's not? What's going to be open? What's going to be closed? There was panic. There was fear. There was agitation. There was some of us were like happy, hey, our kids get to be home with us. And some of us didn't have any of that. It was such a weird influx of emotions. And during that time, I just found myself, initially I found myself panicking and wanting to get information about COVID, like feeling like as a children's book illustrator, we've got to get information out there. We've got to inform the kids, but we didn't know what it was, And I remember early on, my friend Shannon Hale, the creator of Princess in Black, and I, we got together and we said, we've got to make a coronavirus book, like something that we can put out for free really quickly. And I think we did it in 3 weeks, and we were just so anxious to help. And then all this news was coming in, and we were discovering what was happening in New York, what was happening in all the hospitals, and I couldn't absorb it anymore. I just felt like an emotional overload. And right around that time was when I started to just sketch things down. Mm-hmm. And now keep in mind, like of the 100 some odd books that I've done, I've really only written 6 myself. And I'm very, very timid when it comes to writing. Mm. But strangely enough, during this time, like the words came first. And I think it was because as I was walking through my neighborhood, I was seeing signs, like we're all in this together apart, and words were flashing out at me. So it was if I was communicating with all these neighbors who I've never met before, like who spends time in their neighborhood when they're working during the day? And I suddenly felt more in touch with my community than I ever had before, just because of their words and their posters and the sidewalk drawings. And there was one evening, I remember we were out walking and we saw on the garage wall, an elderly woman, one of our neighbors, had written a grocery list, and neighbors were going grocery shopping for her, living at her front porch. And it was just incredibly touching, moving stuff that makes me cry when I think about it. And I just had to put it down. I felt like I'm going to forget these moments. We're going to forget this time when at 8 o'clock, everyone went out to cheer for all the emergency workers and the frontline workers. And we're going to forget about the teddy bears that were in the windows. We're going to forget about these beautiful signs that kids are putting up everywhere, and all the kindness that was passing back and forth. And that's where this book started to come from. So it's not my story. It's our story. And I'm fast, and I could just record it quickly while it was happening, and that's what it is. It's a time capsule of this time.
And you talk about first responders and essential workers, and I love that the book is dedicated to them.
Yeah, of course.
All their work, all of their dedication, and
they're the ones who kept the world going, and they're still keeping the world going. And I don't know. My sister's a doctor up north, and she was telling me about situations up there, and a bunch of friends who are nurses and doctors, and they told me some horrific stories about, my gosh, about how quickly they had to mobilize, how they were so ill prepared for this, how they were using duct tape and plastic wrap to tamp down areas of the hospital to keep it the COVID section. And I'm listening to this, and I'm watching it on the news, and it was just it's too much to watch. And I wonder how many people out there actually do watch those news articles to see what it is that these doctors and nurses are going through. Because one, just watching it for 5 minutes makes you think, I'm wearing a mask. I'm not subjecting these people to this. Like, this is too much to ask these dedicated group of people to do this constantly. And I don't know, if you watch it, it just becomes a no-brainer. This is about caring for each other.
And I think, in reading Outside Inside, it's a book that you're simultaneously reading and feeling. You are feeling it. You are experiencing whether yourself, your family, community, people all over the world have experienced and shared these moments of having to, navigate, the new realities of their day-to-day life, or, missing and worrying about friends and family. So how as a writer and illustrator, how were you kind of handling all those feelings while at the same time responding to them and putting them in a book? What did you do in your brain and just said, I need to take a break? How did you manage that?
I think so. I'm going to start this off by saying, like, I don't like cathartic books. I don't like books written for the author to go through some sort of healing process. I feel like that's such a selfish thing to do. But I'm going to follow that up by saying this was a very cathartic book for me. It was, maybe cathartic's the wrong word. It was my way of coping with what was happening at the time. And it was my way of processing it. And like I said, I've made so many books that my brain filters things in that way. It doesn't simplify it, but it weans through for those little elements of truth that make a good picture book, that make a really great children's book, is those little kernels of truth that exist within a funny story or a simple story or the pictures. And I think that's all my brain was capable of doing during this time, was just to go through and filter out as much as I could, and to winnow it down to simple truths that I was seeing. And that gave me like the ability to go out and approach each of these days and see it with a little more of a clear perspective. And there's something about stepping out of the situation you're in and looking at it from a distance, looking at it from a box. And I think that's what a lot of really good children's books do as well, is they take a complicated situation and you're able to step outside it and view a different perspective to help you get through a particular moment. And that's what happened. My brain took over with that. My arm, my creative side sort of took over. It's like, how they say that your brain is left and right brain, and you've got your rational side and your artistic side. My rational side shut down. and my artistic side just took over. And it said, we're going to make sense of this until your rational side can catch up. I think that as an artist, I'm lucky that I have that, but I think a lot of people don't necessarily have that. And it's sort of my honor to be able to use my brain in that way to find these images and get them out there.
And coming up with the words and the images, you talk about how, this is very collaborative too. You have your family, friends, colleagues, even people on social media that you are reaching out to get, feedback, inspiration, imagery from. How did that work?
At the time, I remember I am not really a great social media person. And I have a Facebook page and I've got an Instagram page, but I don't use it that much. But I remember during the earlier days of lockdown, going to Facebook a lot, just because it was the one way you could see people and the one way that you could reach people. And I saw, all levels of emotion that was displayed on everybody's Facebook page. And it made me, I don't know if you felt this way, but I felt this way initially, that everyone had to go inside. We got locked into our own little houses and we all felt alone, didn't we? Like, wow, we're going through this alone, especially people who didn't have kids, who actually live alone. You're literally alone. And we're societal animals. We can't have that. And Facebook, as for all of the horrific things that it can rot, it also provides that sense of society, that sense of community. And I remember going on it and seeing how many people were affected by this, especially on the East Coast. And so many of my friends in publishing were telling me, one of my editors, her husband's an emergency doctor, and she was telling me that she had to leave. She couldn't stay with him during the time, and she was pregnant at the time, and just all these crazy stories. And I felt like, God, we all have to remember this stuff. Like I need to record all this. And so everyone in the book is actually based on real people. Like I went on Facebook and I said, everyone give me one word for how you feel during this time. And I got back a laundry list from, people on Facebook, and I sat and I recorded each of the words. And then I made sure that each word was represented in the book somewhere, somehow, that someone felt this way, someone felt that way, and it's in the book. And it was really important for me to do, because at the time I was doing it, I didn't know this was going to be a book. I just felt like I'm recording something. I'm making a timeline of something. I'm documenting something here. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't concern myself with whether or not I was being accurate in any way. I just knew that emotion has to be represented. What that person felt has to be represented. And when the book actually did get approved, and my editor Connie Shu over at Macmillan Roaring Brook, she bought the book. She was in tears. We were both. I've never cried so much in the making of a book before. And what I felt especially from the team at Roaring Brook, and all these guys, they were amazing. They were all telling their stories, and Connie was telling what was happening to her, and I felt like, oh my gosh, I have a responsibility to make sure that everyone is in this, everyone makes it. And that's why I keep saying it's not something that I wrote, it's something that I'm just collecting. Right. And it's really so much of a community story. And I can't emphasize that enough, that this is just all of our story. They're barely my words, they're barely my pictures. They're just snapshots of what was seen during this time, and the way that I could do it.
I love that you asked for one word from everyone, and that actually segues perfectly to my last question for you. If you could describe, if you could describe Outside Inside in one word, what would it be and why?
Hope. I think it would be hope. And the reason why is, it's funny, when Connie first talked with me about doing this book, my editor, she said, you've got to make sure that this book exists for more reasons than just the time. It can't just be about this time. It has to be something that in 10 years' time, a child can pick up the book and still glean a message out of it. And that was when I realized, well, we're not going to ever mention the words coronavirus in the book. We're never going to mention the year. We're not even going to mention, the season. We're going to say, spring will come. Mm-hmm. Things will change. Spring will come. And someone had commented about it being written in past tense, and of course we're not out of this yet, so it's not in past tense yet. But that's the purpose of the book. It's the idea is that no matter what we go through, hope pulls us out through the end. Hope, belief that things will be better, belief that the seasons will change, the days will come, we'll continue to grow. We will be better people tomorrow, better than we are today. So I would say the book is about hope. And I really hope that's what people take away from it. I feel like every time I interview about this book, it sounds like I'm about to cry. And it sounds terribly sad and emotional. And it is all those things. And yet it's also about being better tomorrow. Tomorrow will be better. Thank you guys for featuring it. You guys are just one of the most beautiful museums in the world, and it's lovely to have you as an audience and to have you put this book up in some way. And my hope is that it is a crazy book to sit with, but the idea is that you'll sit with a kid and they'll flip through the pictures, and the words are palatable enough that it won't hurt to read. And that you'll have moments you can linger and talk about each of the images and have a chance to bond with whoever it is that's sitting on your lap at that moment. And that's what I hope, is that it's a book discussion and community and together. You're right.
Well, and as part of our We Heart Books in Art program, we also ask our guest authors and illustrators to share an activity of some sort with us. And I know that you've got one that you'll be talking to us a little about. But oh my goodness, look at that! That's something that we can do at home with our family members. That's great. So we'll take a look at LeUyen's art project right now.
Hi everyone! Today I'm going to show you how to make a house out of paper with some cut dolls, if you want to, that you can play with both inside and outside. This is based on my book Outside Inside, and I hope you have some fun making a house and decorating it all yourself.
So today I'm going to show you how to make a paper dollhouse, just like this one, and it's going to look just like something out of the book Outside Inside. And what's nice about this house is you can have both the outside of the house and the inside of the house. It's a little bit different than other paper houses because it's going to have this little glass window on the inside, and you can have these little cut paper dolls and have them go inside and outside. So let's get started. The first thing you are going to need is the template from the Carle Museum. If you download it, it should come with this, which is the template for the house, and this, which is the template for the roof, and maybe a little paper doll. You can take the paper house or you can design your own. As you can see, it's pretty straightforward. You just need the simple shape of the house in the front. You need a little window, and if you want the window to have a special glass on it, you have to have the window no bigger than 2 inches on either side. The special thing about it is that you're going to want to add walls to the side, and you're going to want to add this little folded slit of paper on top on both sides of the roof. Those are going to be folded down, and you're going to glue those to attach the roof on, in case you don't have any Scotch tape to do this with. So let's get started. First, we're going to start with the house. Okay, so now we have the house perfectly cut out. What you're going to want to do at this point is you're going to want to cut out this little square on the inside, but you want to be very careful how you cut that square, because you want to keep that square intact if you possibly can for the next part of our process. So if you've got an X-Acto blade and you have it with your parents, I would put a ruler down, use the X-Acto blade, and very carefully cut out your window. Okay, now you have this little square on the inside. We are going to use this little square to make the crosshairs on the window. So you're going to take the little square and you're going to cut evenly as you can. You can use a ruler if you want, but you can also just use scissors. A bar the length of the square. So make sure you're taking the longest side of the square and you're slicing off a slit from the longest side, not the short side, the long side. And you want to do that twice. Now you have these 2 little crosshair bars. And this is the fun stuff part. So if you printed this out on paper, you'll have these dark marks on the inside of the house. This is going to be the inside of your house, not the outside of your house. That way the outside of the house is nice and white and clean. So what you're going to do first is, from flipping it over, you're going to look at the outside of the house without these bars. You're going to take a piece of masking tape, this packaging tape. And you're going to want to cut off a piece as nicely as you can. It doesn't have to be perfect yet. And you just want to make sure that if it goes over, don't put it down, but you're just checking to make sure that the window is just a little smaller than the piece of masking tape. Now, you're going to cut this into a neat square, or into a neat rectangle, I should say. You've got one side, and again, you want to make sure you have enough tape on both sides so that when you ultimately lay this down, the whole thing will fit with the edges on the outside. So I have my square, and it's just a bit bigger than the outside of the window. And then you're going to lay that down and squish it down just on the edges of the paper, but not against the table. So now you've got the window on one side. Now I've already done it, I've got a little bit of dirt in there, but you want to avoid getting the tape very dirty right now, because the dirtier you make it, the dirtier your window is going to be. So that's the outside of your window. You're going to flip it over. You're going to take the two little pieces of crosshair. You're going to lay one down, actually this way first, whichever way you want. I kind of like windows being a little bit uneven, like that. And then you lay another one the other way, like that. Now you have the crosshairs of your window. But you want to make sure that the sticky side is all covered up. So you're going to take another piece of tape, the exact same size on the other side, and you're going to tape it down on the flip side. You're going to do the same thing that you did on the other side. And then you're going to take that other window side and put it on the other side and tape it down. And now you have a glass window from the outside. Now comes the fun part. Well, not quite yet, actually. Still have to cut out the roof. So you've got the roof, and you're going to want to cut out the roof as well. All right. Now, before you start folding up your house and putting it all together, I might suggest that you take the time now, because it's a little easier when it's all flat to decorate the outside of your house. So if you'd like to, you can fold it so that you know where it's supposed to go. Outside of your house gets folded. One side, two. So now you can see where the walls fold down. What you can do is you can decorate the house. You can add little flowers on the outside. You can draw a tree if you like, or a bird possibly flying in the sky. That can be for the outside of the house. You can draw grass along the bottom. And on the inside, you can draw a table, chairs, things that you do inside. So maybe you're reading a book or a library, or if you've been baking bread, like I've been baking bread, you can put some baked bread in there. So decorate this before you go ahead and start putting the house together, because it's a lot harder to decorate once it's already been put together. So now you're going to want to fold your house all up. One side. And this little piece of paper here is there so that you have something to catch the glue on. If you wanted to, you could skip this step and just use Scotch tape, but I kind of like having this so that it's an area that you can adhere the glue onto. Now you're going to lay it out flat again. You can take your glue, or actually I'm going to use a glue stick because my other glue got dried out. Here's my glue stick, and I'm going to glue it to this part. So just this little bit here is the glue. There you go. Now you have those two pieces that have glue. Now you're going to take your roof, and where the little dotted lines are, you're going to fold down. You're going to want to make this as straight as you can. Now you're going to lay your house up with the glue on one side. And the smartest thing to do is to go sort of one side flat. You want to line up the dotted part of the line really just along the same as this line, but you want to give it a little space over. So you don't want to put it just here. You want to move it over maybe about a centimeter. Lay that down. And now you can close the house up. And now you can fold down the other side. And now you have your little roof. There you go. If you wanted to make the house more stable, you can add a little bit of tape here and here to keep the house up, but it's not completely necessary. It'll stand up on its own, like that, like that. And now you can have some fun cutting out some paper dolls, like this. And to make your doll stand up, you've got to cut these little slits on the bottom. And then you cut this extra little bar. And this is the stand of the doll. And you fold the stand in half. And you put it on the slits of the doll. And now your doll can stand all on its own. And there you go. There's your little house with your doll. You can make all the little dolls you want. You can turn the house around and you can make scenes from the inside of the house. When you're done with the house, you can put it inside the window of your apartment or your home so people can see what it looks like on the inside of your house. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed my project. And I hope if you get a chance, you're able to pick up a copy of Outside Inside. Thank you very much. My name is LeUyen Pham, and I really enjoyed doing this with you. Have a good day. Bye.
Thank you so much for taking the time to talk about your new book with us. For our viewers, if you would like to purchase LeUyen's book, Outside Inside, please visit the Carle Bookshop at shop.carlemuseum.org. And you'll also receive an autographed book plate while supplies last. Thank you, everyone, and happy reading. And LeUyen, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Courtney. Thanks, everybody. And I can't wait to see everybody again sometime soon.
Bye. Thank you.